neurophysiology is basically is how the brain and the nervous systems works in a normal way, and how and you would say neuropathology is the illness that comes when the nervous system is not working well. I can give you a good example. When my first thesis and my experiment was very interesting. I was studying the relationship between the limbic system, that is emotional part of the brain, with the cardiovascular system. In some ways, what I was trying to do with the guidance of one of the best neurophysiologists in South America, that was my advisor, Dr. Professor Covian. And what I was trying to understand is what was the relationship between mind. How come, for example, someone would, under a lot of stress, would faint or have a heart attack? You know? And we developed a model to study that in rats. And what I was doing initially, to understand a little bit what neurophysiologists does, we are talking about almost 40 years ago, is I was putting electrodes, very tiny electrodes inside the head of the rat and on the limbic system, giving a small stimulation and seeing how his cardiac system responded. Basically, we were looking about blood pressure and what could happen in terms of blood pressure. The most interesting thing happened is after doing 2 years in studying this and establish all the connections between the limbic system and the cardiovascular system, and also defending my thesis, one day we decided to do a different kind of experiment, and we go back and study again the same procedure, and doing it stimulating of the brain and seeing the results in cardiovascular. And one thing that happened at that time and that influences me up to now is that when we did that experiment, the results was completely the opposite we got. And that was very unique. That means the first phase of the 2 years that I was studying, when we would stimulate the area, that septum area in the limbic system, the person, the rat would respond with hypertension. You know? That would show how they could, what happened when someone is stressed, why they can have a heart attack. But then, repeating the same experiment, 2 years later, I got a different result. I had a low blood pressure. And I said I had a technician helping me to set up the whole system. And I said, I don't understand. We probably got this in the wrong area. And this is a long story, but what ended up is I repeat that test many times, and the results was all the same. And I said, then my whole thesis was wrong. And then I said, but what is different here? What happened? Mm-hmm. And then my technician said, well, what happened is, maybe what could explain is that we changed the kind of anesthetic we are using. That means during the first part, we were using a different anesthetic. And I said, well, I want to know about this, how this anesthetic work, because we were using a rat. Initially, we were using a rat under anesthesia. Mm-hmm. Later, we used rats a lot, moving, like many of the experiments are doing now. But when I studied how this anesthetic influenced the brain, what we realized is that one anesthetic, we have basically two systems in the brain. One is activating, the other is more inhibiting. And one anesthetic would work through the inhibition, that is what we call GABAergic, and the other anesthetic would work more to stimulation. And that is a different neurotransmitter. And what that made me think was, wait a minute, the response we have when we are stimulating the brain depends on the state of the brain before the stimulation. Mm-hmm. And I did present this to in neurology, in terms of Congress in neurology, and that was about 35 years ago, and they were very impressed with the idea that how you respond to a stimuli depends a lot on how your brain is at that moment. Interesting now, 35 years, 40 years ago, now we have the ideas about mindset, and you know that the brain is going to respond. You have a positive psychology, you have different other ideas that says how you are thinking or how your state of mind initially is going to influence your response to the stimuli that you are receiving, or whatever happens in your life, how you deal with that has a lot to do with how your brain is working.
And that's an important difference, the difference between hypertension and whatever that leads to, heart attack.
Exactly.
Those are very real results, yes,
Yes.
versus the lower tension. Wow.